I am going to officially get started. So welcome everybody to Expert Connect. And tonight I'd like to welcome Darren Barnes to the show. Darren is an expert Mah Jongg instructor and also trains the trainer. And Darren also is the creator of the Mah Jongg Charleston Assist. You could see it there in the background. Darren's going to talk more about that a little bit later on in the show. Darren, I just want to thank you so much for joining us tonight and being our guest on Expert Connect.
Debbie, thank you for having me. It's so nice to just get a chance to talk more with you too. And thank you for creating this Expert Connect, because without it, we wouldn't have a forum like this where instructors and players and the whole Maj community can network and learn from each other and listen to other people who are exciting and interesting. So thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Well, we're going to get started, and I'm going to ask you some interesting questions, hopefully not so tough though. All right, so the first thing I always love to know about someone is a bit about your background and how you got involved with Mah Jongg.
Well, I probably been playing for about 25 years now. I had to stop and count on that, but I've been playing around 25 years now, and I learned from my girlfriend's mom who wintered here in Canada. I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona, and she wintered here to get away from the horrible winters. Her name was Mrs. Wingold, and she taught her daughter and a bunch of us how to play, thankfully, by the National Mah Jongg League rules of play. So at least I didn't have to worry about that later. So I was grateful to her for that. I've taught now for about 15 years. So I just love playing, and that just kind of became a passion of mine. But I've been playing for a long time. I think right now I teach more than I play, I would say.
Well, that's excellent. And I'm really glad you learned to play Mah Jongg, because when Randy and I traveled last summer in our RV, we got to meet you and spend time with you, although we didn't get a chance to play Mah Jongg. The next time we travel, we will make sure that happens, because we already decided we were going to spend more time together next time during my travels. So
we've got to get Claude to be our fourth.
Oh, well, I need to work on him now. Based on the questions I asked him during that evening, I don't think so. But we can work on him, right? Yeah, exactly. So what inspired you to start teaching?
So I think, my passion for teaching evolved. I have my master's in education from UCLA. And so I'm an educator. I taught first and second grade way back when. And I think that passion just evolved into my love for teaching. I taught a volunteer class for many, many years through Brandeis National Committee, which is a lay leader driven organization here in Arizona and many other cities. And so you need to get volunteers to teach whatever you are interested in. So I had a beginner Mah Jongg class for at least 12 years. And that just kind of started to evolve. And I began getting private students from that and just started my own business teaching. So I've always had the passion for teaching.
Oh, that's wonderful. And I know that our history goes back, and not a lot of years, but enough years where I've seen the progress that you've made and how much you've expanded your teaching circle there. And I think that's absolutely wonderful to see that growth. It's really sweet, really.
Yeah. All right. There's an explosion of Mah Jongg right here.
Oh, I know. They're in everywhere, really. It's all over the country, which is so incredible, and it's fabulous. I mean, it has some of its drawbacks, but from a teacher standpoint, from a rules person standpoint, but we're happy to bring people on board, and that's our job as instructors, is to, help them learn the game the proper way. And so this brings me kind of segues into the next question, which is perfect. How important is it for you to maintain the integrity of the National Mah Jongg League rules, and why?
Well, I think, if we look back, that Mah Jongg is a game of traditions anyway. And we do things a certain way, and we can't always explain. I'm always asked by my students, why are we taking the tiles the way we do when we set up and take our tiles? And it's like, I can't tell you why, but it's always been done that way. And I think the rules and following those kind of rituals of the gameplay are really important. I teach by the National Mahjong League rules of play. Um, I think before some of these rules might have been established in the US back in the 1930s, that some people would go to one home and they would play in a certain way. They would go to another venue and play, and the rules would be different there. So I'm sure there was conflict. I'm sure there were issues with some of the rules that came up. So by establishing these rules for us, at least you can play with anybody. Now, after my students learn from me, if they develop house rules or other things, that's out of my control. But when they take the beginner series with me, they do learn by the National Mahjong League rules.
That's great. And we do owe quite a bit to the National Mahjong League for having standardized the rule. Yes, there's some inconsistencies and ambiguities throughout the rule book, but nonetheless, we would not be what we are today without them. So I'm very grateful to them for sure. Excellent. Well, I love to hear when, teachers do teach by the rules, because I've met some that don't even know that there are National Mahjong League rules. That's a bit
crazy.
Scary. Yeah, that's a bit scary, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some of the key elements or strategies that you actually emphasize in your teaching approach?
Well, I think I've been told by players that I'm a pretty methodical teacher. I do introduce the tiles and make sure they have a grasp on the tile names, the groupings of tiles. I make sure they learn the terms they're going to see on the card: single, pair, pung, kong, quint. I don't say 3 of this and 4 of that. I really want them to know those terms. They're going to see them on the playing card. I spend a lot of time with my students decoding the playing card, so that they really have a great understanding about the card and the rules in the parentheses after the hands. With big groups, small groups, I also spend quite a good amount of time, a whole class at least, on making hands. So they'll start with 1 suit hands, 2 suit hands, we'll go to 3 suit hands, then matching dragon hands, opposite dragon hands, and some complex hands. And I'll actually model hands for them too. So for instance, I had a really large group recently, and I didn't want them to be on top of each other with getting the tiles. So I actually sat down ahead of time and pre-planned what hand each person would make, so that one was doing odd, one was doing even, one was doing wins, so that they weren't on top of each other as we were learning hands. And then I'll go ahead, if there's a space for me to make a hand and create mistakes, and see after if they can catch them. And when I have a large group or small, I actually have them get up with their card after they make the hands, and we all walk around. So they have to start learning how to see the tiles and what category it might be, and then also which hand. So I have the player who made that hand not tell where the hand is, and it has to be sought by the other players in the class. And then I'll do a hand and definitely make mistakes for them to find. Maybe I'll throw a 1 bam in the flowers.
Love it. Love it.
Just do one of these typical beginner mistakes.
Love it.
See if they can.
Yeah. A joker in 2023, right? Those things. Yeah.
I mean, for so many beginners, that it's a whole other language, decoding the playing cards. So
Yeah.
I do spend quite a bit of time doing that. So my approach is slow. I go with the pace of play of my players. Sometimes it can be more quickly, but oftentimes it takes time.
Okay, so you clearly did answer in part my next question, which is how do you ensure that your students grasp the fundamentals of Mahjong? But while you're doing all this, because you clearly spend a lot of time teaching some very important elements and making sure that they do grasp that, how do you also foster their individuality, through their creativity and personal playing style?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, I do model some stuff, because if if this is a beginner group, I'm going to
Mhm.
show them how I set up my tiles and what makes sense to me. I did have a player once who set up in descending order their suits. And so we talked about that because the card is not set up that way. So that would be a real hard thing for you to be able to switch later. So I
Mhm.
always tell them to put their groupies together in suit and the ascending order. I happen to put my matching dragons with the suit to make it easier in the beginning, and my winds separate and my flowers and jokers first. But in terms of them, becoming more individualized and finding their own personal play style, I think it comes with time and play.
Mhm.
So right in the beginning, when I have these beginners, they're sort of still setting up the way I've modeled it, but I don't care what order they put them in. Bams can be first or dots, I'm not like, you have to do it this way. And as they become comfortable with playing, I think they develop this personal style and comfortable way of playing. And that's for them to do.
Excellent, excellent. And before I go on to my next question, I just want to welcome anybody who's come in a little bit late and all those watching on YouTube, just to say thank you again for joining us tonight. And now we'll go ahead and continue on with a few more questions. All right. Now, are there any specific techniques or exercises you use to help students improve their Mahjong skills?
Well, in answering this, I think it's easier if I divide it between my beginners and intermediate or advanced players. With my beginners who are still having a hard time choosing a hand, let's say, or choosing a section or category, I often have ways that they can practice at home by setting up 13 tiles and then go ahead and doing a mock Charleston where they're taking 3 tiles and passing 3 tiles, so they can practice focusing their hand toward a category or two first and then hands. So not to be so focused on, I got to find the hand right away off this whole entire card. It doesn't work that way. It's shooting toward a category, 2 related categories, and then toward a hand. I also like to encourage them to go online to practice. I mean, you have great skill building things available for students, or watching you play and see how to learn about setting up or choosing or other aspects of gameplay. I also love that American Mahjong practice app,
Mhm.
which is great for people who are not don't have their card with them. Maybe they're sitting at the airport or at a doctor's office, and the app, actually, given the tiles that you're dealt, will give you maybe up to 10 hands that they feel are the best choices for the fit of your tiles. So it narrows down the card completely. You don't need your card with you, and you have options of hands, but it just creates a way to not feel like the card is so big, at least in the beginning. So that's what I would say for some of the beginner players. With advanced players, I love to get into other crazy ways to teach them. So I can tell you a couple of the different games that I have to help teach your intermediate and advanced players. What I find with them is, I taught a class at Scottsdale Center for, it was through the Parks and Recreation Department,
Mhm.
and it was a senior center, and they didn't want me to just walk around, nor did I want to. Walking around and supervising players who know how to play, I don't think develops a stronger, more flexible player. So I came up with these tweaked games, and we've called them gamify games, which help them focus on other aspects of play, get them out of their comfort zone a little bit. So one of the ones I use, actually for beginners too and advanced, is called forced section play. And so you have your players set up and get their tiles organized, and then you need a bag or some sort of a vessel, a basket or anything you want. And the instructor will need to prep ahead by going ahead and taking cards and writing category headings on the card. So this says addition, any like number. So every card has the category heading of the National Mahjong League card. And I think I've written 3 or 4 times each category. And then when the players are ready, you shake the bag and have them choose one section, and they are forced to play there for the remainder of the game. So it actually can help beginners very much, because obviously they're not choosing what category at all. But advanced players who tend to maybe play certain areas of comfort, certain categories, are forced to, no matter what they're dealt, go toward one section. It's useful for an instructor also if you are running out of time in a class.
Mm.
I've had it happen where I only have 20 minutes, half hour left, and I'm like, not gonna get a whole game in with these guys. So I'll use this, and they actually, the beginners love it. Advanced players, you know, it's a love-hate thing. What happens is sometimes you have 4 tiles toward that category, and you have the rest to go ahead and pass away. So it can be frustrating.
Mhm.
However, doing this, somebody always mages.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting study. What
Yeah,
happens?
you can force a category.
Yeah.
You know, so if you're somebody who does the dot challenge on the card during the year and you have not played certain hands in certain categories, you just decide for that evening, if you're playing online or with your friends, well, maybe more online than with your friends, because if you're playing for money, you might not want to take the risk and do that. But
That's true.
still,
Yeah.
it does work. It really does.
I'm
So I think
surprised.
that's
Somebody always mages, and it really can
fun.
help a teacher. If you don't want to put the quint section or the singles and pairs, you can pull those cards out and have whatever sections or categories you want them to work on.
That's
So
excellent.
it's a wonderful one. And then another one that is definitely, I have players who love it and players who hate it. It's
Oh,
called Claude's Game, and that's my fiance, and he does not play Mah Jongg, but he helped me think of this game. He has played cards. So I guess because of that, he helped me come up with a game. So I called it Claude's Game. This
aw.
one, go ahead and have your players set up for normal play, and then start the Charleston. And somewhere in the Charleston, maybe after the first left, you are going to tell your players to stop and really study the tiles that they have in front of them. And then you ask them to pick up their card and go ahead and move 1 seat to the right. So players hate this.
Oh,
They need to remember what they were playing and what category or categories they were looking at, and go ahead and move over and pick up where that player left off. So this is a tough game. I had a lot of chuckles when I've done this, and it really forces players then during the rest of the Charleston to concentrate. What were they playing? What are their incoming passes? What are they passing out? So they can really start learning how to pick up where somewhere else left off. And how does that feel, knowing what you played in the other seat?
Oh my God, that one to me, it sounds so fascinating. And I do have to say that for any instructors that are watching today, from my point of view, and I'm sure you feel the same way, Darren, is anybody who adopts my style of teaching or your style of teaching is the greatest compliment that one can get. So I hope that, you know, the instructors that are watching do take away from this, because I love that. And I think I'm going to adopt that one for sure, because it sounds like a hoot.
It is, and everybody started laughing when I did it. And then you can do it again, because you don't have to tell them when they're going to be changing seats or with whom. Maybe the next time you'll stop at the end and make them switch seats across or something. So it can be a ton of fun.
Okay, so when somebody has a great set of tiles that they were dealt in on the onset, right? They got everything set and they know where they're going, and you say, all right, musical chairs or mahjong chairs or whatever you want to call it. Do you get a lot of people saying, oh, but I had such great tiles?
Then I'm like, remember what you were playing, and make sure that person doesn't get maj on you. You don't throw her the tiles she needs. So, you know, there's a lot of strategy you can use on this.
Yeah.
And what I love about the advanced players is you can really talk maj with them after you do these kinds of tweaked games.
Yeah.
You can have a whole debriefing lesson on it, because there's so much you can talk about with strategy, especially.
Fun. A lot of fun.
That's a lot of fun. So those are just 2 of the games. One other, I don't know if we have time, but one is also jokerless play, where you would actually, anytime someone does get a joker, you go ahead and have them discard it and pick another tile from the wall. So no joker.
Fun.
So this is another challenging one, which maybe it would help foster people looking more toward the singles and pairs section to start, knowing they're not going to play with jokers at all. And also, what is their end game strategy? You didn't have the safest tile to throw. What happens at end game? So that's a really, really fun game too.
That is fun. That is fun. Okay, so another question that I had that I meant to ask you before this one, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Can you share any memorable success stories of your students who have benefited from your teaching methods? We all have those memorable experiences with our students. So
Yeah,
not all of them are great, but I want to hear the good ones.
well, I would say that one of the most important things is fostering the love of the game of Mah Jongg. And I know that has happened. So I know how many players that I've touched their lives in teaching them, and now they are addicted to the game. Some of them don't thank me, but most of them thank me. And one lady made me a beautiful needlepoint. They're just still involved in play. So that would be the highlight for me as a teacher, is knowing that we're still playing. I've heard through the grapevine that I had two players play in the Scottsdale tournament here that we have every, I think it's March or April. So I don't know how they did, but I know they were at tournament play level, which is very fulfilling to know. And then also I've played with students that I taught many years ago. I think it was at least 10 years ago. And so we have a group, and once in a while I'm asked to come play with them, and they're doing phenomenally. I just couldn't believe it. And their strategy is employed, and I just, I taught them so long
Yeah,
ago.
and when they mahjong while you're playing.
And I don't.
And you don't. Yes, exactly. Yeah, but it's rewarding. It
Yeah.
certainly is rewarding.
I think that's the biggest thing, is just seeing the bonds that are formed, and I'll get notes years later of groups that are still playing together and still friends.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really nice to know that there are the people our students appreciate us so much, and those that let you know, that go out of their way to send a card. I've gotten cards or emails, just like little things like that, just let you know, keep doing what you're doing. It's
Yeah.
just it's so fulfilling to give to this incredible community. And okay, so my next question leads me into this Mah Jongg Charleston assist that you created.
Yeah.
It's really cool, and I know that you have a large one on an easel behind you. You probably have a small one in the packet that you could share and show as well. But I want to know, what sparked this idea, and how does it work? And tell me about any other items that you offer to the community that help with skills.
Well, the Mah Jongg Charleston Assist started over, let's see, it probably was about 2019. For a long time, I was using actually a laminated card that one of my students had made with the Order of the Charleston and a paper clip. So we were sliding the paper clip down to each of the steps in the Charleston, and it works. But I said, I got to come up with something better. My students are always asking me, when can I blind pass? Whose pass is this? How many tiles do I have to pass on this pass? So it became hard for them to remember where they were, and often getting lost in the Charleston. I think another thing, a lot of teachers teach by roller, right across left, second left across right. And it's just another thing to memorize. And these players have been, working hard, learning the tiles, learning the terms, decoding the playing card, learning rules. And it's just a huge other thing when they get into play finally, that they're like, oh my God, I don't think I can memorize this. But the funny thing is, I find that it's not just beginners who are enjoying the Mah Jongg Charleston Assist. I actually get reviews by players who've been playing a long time who still get lost. They're either really chatty, or I had someone write me that they drink a lot of wine, and so they need the Charleston Assist because they're getting lost because they're having drinks. But it's a great device. It's made of a styrene plastic, as you can see here, and the arrow can be moved. You designate a player and move the arrow to each of the steps in the Charleston. It tells you when you have the option to stop passing and go over to the optional pass. And I've had this size, which is about a 5x6 size, and do on my website at Maj by Darren, which is MAJBYDARON, and also an Etsy shop, Maj by Darren. I have an Etsy shop too.
And we're going to put all of the links, everything. It will be in the video description. And when it's posted for replay on YouTube. So anybody watching, anybody new will be able to grab those links for your items.
Thank you. So my newest thing is I made a poster to help me during my teaching. Now the middle dial is not operable, so I'm still kind of working on whether I can create something that is, but it is a poster size of the same thing and can come in really handy for teachers as a visual aid when you get to the Charleston part. So I think it's been something so helpful, and you use it during the Charleston and then set it in the corner when gameplay starts. And like I said, beginners to advanced players have enjoyed using this, and I think it's a helpful tool.
Well, I guess I like them too, because I have a big supply and they definitely get sold to my students.
Awesome.
So
I'm glad to see that.
100% support the idea. I think it's so clever, fabulous. And what other items can you share with us?
Well, some of the things I have on my website also is every year I put up blogs on my website at Maj by Darren, and usually it's from things that come up during play, during my classes, topics of interest that I want to delve into. And so I do write infrequent posts, probably every 3 months. But every year when the new card comes out, I actually make a worksheet packet that looks like this, and it's downloadable and printable. And in the packet, I include questions about the card so that you can become more familiar with the playing card. And also it forces you to look at the card from different angles. So maybe a question might be, how many hands have flowers? And you have to physically count the hands with flowers. How many quint hands require 1 quint only? So you'll need to check that category and be able to answer those questions. The second part of the worksheets in here are all based on the patterns and rhythms on the card, and I'm very into that. I think it's so helpful for becoming familiar with the card by knowing this year we have a lot of pung kong hands. So some of the questions might be that, can you name the 9 hands that have a pung kong rhythm? Or can you name 8 of the hands that require matching dragons? So I ask all kinds of questions that make you search for things on the card, because I think normally, people just kind of go through a transition time and play with the new card. But I think this is helpful if you want to pull back a little, look at the card from other perspectives and learn the card really well. So this is another thing that I offer on my website. And when that card comes out, I sit down and like frantically try to write my worksheet packets. And then of course I want Claude to take the test, but for some reason he can't answer the question.
Oh my goodness, that's hysterical. Yeah, it is a frantic time for instructors when the new card comes out, because we all owe quite a bit to the community to help them transition, especially the newer players. So
definitely.
Thank you so much for doing that. And again, we'll have your website link. We'll have everything that anybody needs to be able to reach out to you. Will be there. So we'll provide all that to you. Now, Darren, what advice would you give individuals who want to learn the game? They have an interest, but they do feel intimidated or just unsure where to begin with it all. What would you tell them?
Yeah, well, don't be intimidated, but Mah Jongg cannot be learned in one sitting. And anyone who says they can teach you in one sitting is crazy. It takes time, it takes practice, like I said, and finding a qualified instructor is so important, whether it be through online learning, like from your school American Mah Jongg, or in person, but lessons have to be from someone who's qualified. And people say, oh, my friend is going to teach me. And that's all well and good, but a lot of times friends do not make the best teachers. They make the best friends.
Yeah, so, I love that.
Someone who has a little bit of knowledge in teaching and breaking it down into steps that you can handle. I know I tried having longer classes, and at least with my maybe just the demographics and age group that I teach to, that even became difficult for some, because it really is hard to concentrate for a half day, let's say. So I generally like my classes to be about 2 plus hours. And it seems like enough. And then always going back and refreshing all my classes. They're obviously the next class is based on the previous information. So I always back up a little to review, and you need someone who knows how to do that, so you're not intimidated. And I have not had anyone not learn to play. So I don't know what that means, but I feel like everyone can learn to play. I even worked with someone who had a brain issue, and we just went slower and did more kinds of drills and things, and she learned to play. So I really feel pretty much everyone can learn to play.
That's excellent. And I really agree with you about, friends or my neighbor, or, I hear this quite a bit from people. If you're not teaching on a regular basis, you don't have a program laid out for your students and some kind of a syllabus for them to, or classroom outline for them to follow and take home with them. I mean, there's going to be things that are missed. And I've seen this happening in the area where I live as well. So I do feel that if anybody could take away anything from this, know that you need to have a professional. And when people ask me, I say, ask them, find out what their credentials are. How long have they been playing? How long have they been teaching? Where do they teach? If somebody says, I never have taught, but I play and I love it. Those are not the credentials that you want when you're learning this very strategic and technical game.
I actually had 2 players take with someone and then retake with me, starting fresh again. And they couldn't believe the difference. They had been jumped into the game too soon. They did not know the terms on the playing card. And you just can't grasp everything,
Yeah, it is. It's challenging. Well, that's great. Great information. Thank you so much. Let's see, what else did I want to ask you? How about any upcoming projects? Have any workshops or any other things on the fire?
Well, it's summer here in Arizona and 111 degrees.
Ooh.
We hibernate. Classes have slowed down a little, but I do go up to Flagstaff in the summer and teach normally a fairly big class, maybe about 12 students up there for a boot camp style. So I do Monday through Friday 2-hour classes, which is great. There's no time for them to forget anything.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And I was also saying, I think I've become like the handout queen instructor, because I do a lot of handouts so that if they're playing on their own, they can always pull something out to review. So I definitely have a handout for everything, I think. No workshops right now. I think people are well into the card, but I still get people very interested in the worksheet packet, because I think it's helpful no matter where you are in your Mah Jongg 2023 journey.
That's great. That's great.
And then just working on my poster and setting up some things for fall for teaching. So
excellent. Excellent. Well, good job with it all. And how can the viewers and then people that are watching the replay, what is the best way to reach you? Contact on your website, email, tell us.
So you can contact me through my website, but my email address is very easy. Also, it's majbydarren@gmail.com. So they can reach me there too. And I have people reach out from my website too, and then I'll write them back on my email. So any way they want is fine. And, I'd be happy to help. I do have instructors get in touch with me as well. And if they're interested in learning a little more about the Gamify, I guess that's my big project. As you had a book, I'll have to get information on how to do this, but I'm thinking of writing a book with all of my Gamify games, because I have probably about 10 of them right now that I think are really good for instructors to use for teaching.
Oh, to say a labor of love is an understatement. It is, but you can do it. You can do it. You just have to start. Just pick the pen up and start. Well, actually, the keyboard. You'll be working with the keyboard. Hopefully, no more pen and paper. But that's great. That'll be a wonderful book. Actually, man, I hope you get started with that soon.
Yeah. Well, there's a little bit of a list, so that's my start.
Oh, okay. That's great. It's like a bucket list, a Mah Jongg list, right? Yeah.
Gamify list.
Yeah, exactly. Great. Well, this has been fascinating. Unless there's anything else that I missed that you want to share, I'm actually going to open this up to the audience
Perfect.
so that if they have any specific question, they can ask. And I'll be watching the comments on both YouTube and on Zoom so that I hopefully get everybody. And I'm also going to take off, remove me from the middle view here, remove my spotlight, and there you are, center spot. Nice. Okay. So if anybody has any comments, please find them. We're not a huge crowd. I know on YouTube they have to put their questions in the chat. On Zoom, we're not a huge crowd. So if you do want to unmute yourself, you can unmute yourself. If you want to ask Darren anything in particular, please do. I did have a comment from Linda, who said that everything you've shared, she said, great ideas, which is, I agree, 100%. So Jan wanted to know what your website was, and I will have that in the video description, but you can share the website address if you'd like now too, and I can type that into chat.
Okay, it's www.Maj by Darren. So it's MAJBYDARON.com. So
Okay,
Maj
beautiful. All right, so I just put it into chat. And Claudia is asking, what materials do you have for teaching intermediate and advanced players? Now, I don't know if Claudia, if you covered some of that, I know you did, but we have time. You can answer again and provide that for Claudia.
So most of the things that I do with those players are some of these gamified games. And if you reach out to me, we can discuss that and I can share some of those with you. But that's the way I usually teach. I also have a pre-game, start game, middle game, end game kind of breakdown of actual play and what happens through each of those parts and phases of play. So that's another thing that I'll do with my classes. Like I said, but most of the time I'll jump them into a tweaked game and then have my goals for those games, and all of them kind of have their unique goals, such as getting out of your comfort zone and not playing the same categories, focusing on passing, mindfulness during passing and play. So there are objectives to all of the tweaked games, and I just find it's much more helpful than my walking around and they're asking me, should I play this? What should I do? I just kind of put them into these games, and then we have a lot of time for discussion after. So I would say
thank you very much.
Oh, excellent. All right, and Sean is asking if you would be willing to teach an advanced student, or do you have a requirement for a certain amount, like a group of 4?
Yeah, generally speaking, I do 3+ players in my groups, but I also do in-person instruction right now. I'm not set up for Zoom lessons. That's Debbie's area of expertise.
You're going to leave that one to me, huh?
Yes, I am.
Okay. All right. And so, Sean, if you want to reach out to Darren to continue the conversation further, please feel free to do so for the evening.
If you go to my website, you can see old posts and articles I have on certain aspects of gameplay too. And I do direct my students there when I teach. I'll put a link now in a review them. So if you want to look at that, and I have a resource page on there now that I just added. And so players can just go and click on, for instance, Debbie's book. If they're looking for a book or for how to play online or where to buy sets, I do have a new resource page I added recently to my website.
Oh, super. And I wanted to also mention that you were at MajCon last October, and you were one of our session leaders. Do you have a few words to say about your experience at MajCon? Because I encourage everybody watching to consider joining us this year at the events. Anything to share?
Sure. Oh my God. It was such a fun experience. It was fun and social, tons of time to play Mahjong. And I lost a lot of quarters when I played. I think with Barney and Teresa. So yeah, I lost a lot of quarters. I think it was really great to meet people that I only saw online or through the Mahjong community or Facebook. So putting a person to a face was great. Shopping. If you like shopping, there were really good vendors last year. And then I was able to do my gamify and teach a couple of the tweak games of Mahjong in the session that I led. And I had players there and instructors, so that was surprising too. And I think the players had just as much fun as the instructors. So MajCon is just a great place to hang out and to socialize and to learn, because as long as you play Mahjong, you can always learn something.
Oh, absolutely. There's nobody to, I mean, you relearn, even if you think you know it all, we forget certain skills. So it's always great to keep them up to date for sure. All right. Well, the links to MajCon will also be in the video description and a lot more there. So please do feel free to rewatch this when it's uploaded. It takes about a day for me to get it tweaked. Sometimes a little sooner. Please share with your friends and let them know about it. And if you do visit the MajCon YouTube channel, please subscribe, click the bell so that you get notifications. And if you like what you're watching, there's tons of educational videos, lots of great, all of the previous special Monday night events are on there to watch. All of the Expert Connect events are on there to watch. If you like what you're watching, please give a thumbs up. And I think this will conclude the session tonight. And I want to thank you again, Darren, for being the guest tonight on Expert Connect. It's been so great to have you here. And I'll look forward to having you here again in 2024.
I would love it. Thank you. Thank you for everything you do, Debbie. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. And the same for you, Darren. Good night, and good night, everybody. Everybody be safe, and hopefully I'll see some of you tomorrow night at the Monday night monthly special event, which is all about Mahjong rules that don't have penalties. So come join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. Good night.
Good night.